How's everybody doing today? Hi, Laura. It's this funny time before class starts. It's like, what do you do with the time? I guess we can just sit here
This month.
setting our motivation, thinking about why we're here. On this beautiful fall day. Just for a change, so we don't forget, David, would you lead us in the opening prayers, the mandala offering, and yeah.
Sure.
Maybe
You start with the mandala?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. Sashi puki jukshing me tok tram Rira blingshi nyende gen padi Sangye shingdu vikte ulwargi Drokun namdak shing la chuparshok Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Changchu Bardu Dakni Kyabsuchi Daki Jinsoki Be Sunam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Druparshok Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam Changchu Bardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Jinsoki Be Sunam Ki Rola Panchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam Changchu Bardu Dakni Kyabsuchi Daki Jinsoki Be Sunam Ki Rola Panchir Sangye Druparsho.
Thank you. So welcome back to ACI 18, Class 7, review of ACI 14. So let's get this show on the road. All good? Great. So we get to jump into Lojong some more today, which for me is a pleasure. I hope it is to you as well. Like, how do we develop a good heart? How to become kinder and really be like walking goodness, right? What would that look like in your own life, to be like walking goodness? So we had some Lojongs yesterday. We learned a little bit. We had a Kagyu Lojong teacher, right? And today we're going to start with a Sakya Lojong teacher, which is another one of the schools of Tibetan Buddhism, right? And the Sakya teacher we're going to start with is Sakya Pandita. Oh no, that's the next one, sorry. Is Drapa Gyeltsen, Jetsun Drapa Gyeltsen, who lived 1147 to 1216. And the Sakya patriarchs, the fathers of the Sakya lineage, play a big part in our Diamond Way teachings. They're very important, right? And Drapa Gyeltsen was the third of the 5 great Sakya patriarchs. And this Lojong, which is called Freedom from the 4 Attachments, was taught to him by Manjushri, right? Just like Master Asanga got teachings from Lord Maitreya. Now, the Sakya Pandita, whose name is Kyunga Gyaltsen, who lived 1182 to 1251, is the nephew of Drapa Gyaltsen. And then there's Jogan Chugi Pakpa. And this is the Sakya Pandita's nephew. So this lineage is passed down through the family. And this person is extremely important because he is the one who brought Buddhism to Mongolia. And our immediate lineage, of course, comes from Mongolia. Or part of it does. So these are all very important. These 3 patriarchs, these 3 high teachers of the Sakya lineage are very important to us. So it's interesting, we're not wearing one hat here in Lojong. We're wearing hats from different schools, which have different perspectives and ways of teaching Lojong. And it's so cool because there'll be one Lojong probably that you'll really like, and you'll think, oh, that's the one that really speaks to me, right? So use it, right? Use it. They're in your reading. Don't be lazy. Do your reading. They're there so we can use them. They're part of our toolbox. So freedom from the 4 thoughts, 4 attachments. What are they? The first one is called Shempa Shidrel. She means, that's the title rather for the whole thing. She means 4, Drel is freedom, and Shempa is attachment. So, Drapa Gyaltsen, Jetsun Drapa Gyaltsen, he got these teachings from Lord Manjushri. And they're just short little one-liners. And as he was thinking about it, sitting down, having his cup of tea in the morning, thinking about these, contemplating them, he realized that the entire practice of the path of the perfections could be found in these four. The whole path for following the perfections. So the first one says, a person who is attached to this life is not a Dharma practitioner. Again, we have to think about, we have to question, what does this mean? Does it mean I shouldn't be attached to having a life, to having a healthy life, to being alive? Does it mean enjoying things? Does it mean having goals in this life? Things that we want to achieve? Does it mean about caring for people and things? What do you guys think? David says, no, I can only see one person on here. I need a third monitor. It's right. He's right. No, it doesn't mean any of those things, right? It means what you choose to do with your daily life. We talked about it yesterday. And what we choose to do with our daily life is an indication of whether we're attached and how much we're attached or not to this life. It's about making the right choices. What to spend this precious life energy on. And do we want to dedicate it toward a life which is free of attachment? Now, does that mean that we don't care about anything? Heck no. We do care. What does attachment mean here? Are you attached to your point of view? Are you attached to your suffering? Are you attached to your habitual ways of doing things? How do we determine what we should take up and what we should give up? So if we're attached to only getting good things in this life, of being comfortable, of having enough of everything, and maybe even more than you need, if we're attached to those things, like, having one more computer screen, if I am attached to that, then I'm no Dharma practitioner. If I would do something to hurt somebody, to have that thing, keep that thing, right? I am no Dharma practitioner. If I am thinking about others and planting seeds for the future of sweet flowerings of those seeds, and learning how to do that, taking up those practices, I am then a Dharma practitioner. So the second one, sorry, I'll back up a little bit, sorry. So how do we usually determine what we're going to do in our lives. And he says that there's 4 ways. Through our instincts, what we feel is right, what we, feels good to us. The problem with that is they're also karmic ripenings. They are impermanent. And when the pressure is on, they will slip away. And maybe they're not the best instincts we have anyway, because they're from habits. Our feelings, right? Sorwa. We tend to only do good things when we feel good, right? Again, they just slip away when we're feeling bad, tired, upset. Then we generally can get very cranky, and complain, or, we're unhappy with things. Or like the customs that you grew up with in your country, in your family. Luksu, right? Our cultures, our religions, our laws. And they form how we relate to the world. They form that. And then, of course, our father and mother and our friends. That's what pa and ma mean. I didn't think I needed to translate that for you. Right? Our friends, our teachers, our parents, our brothers and sisters, they also help form our worldview. And that's what we're talking about here, is how we view the world. But Dharma students who want to become enlightened beings and masters of the Dharma, they check these out. Am I just reacting to something? Is this just an instinct, and the instinct feels good that I should do it? Is this a custom of my country? Do I think it's correct that they should treat people the way they do? I can say in my country, there's been some really horrendous things happen, not just in the past, but even right now, in how people are being treated. And for some people, they accept that and it's okay. So check up. Is it okay? Does it fit into the seed system for how you're going to create your future? So when we begin to examine these things, what happens? We go against the grain of society. We go against our families many times, the things that we were brought up with. And he says that if you do that, you will suffer. Because most of society is attached to small pleasures. And they won't understand that you're going for something that is much greater, that you're going for the bliss of full enlightenment for yourself and other beings. So they'll think you're pretty weird. Just get used to it, right? Hang out, hang out, oh, excuse me. Hang out with your weird Dharma friends, right? Then you don't look so weird. But we do look weird. Oh, you don't kill mosquitoes? But don't they hurt you? You know, people think we're weird. And I say, I like wearing that badge on my chest. I'm weird. Maybe we should make that a pin to put on. Don't worry about me. I'm just weird. It's a sign of a good Dharma practitioner. Okay. So now we'll go to number 2. A person who is attached to the 3 worlds has no renunciation. This is talking about specifically 3 kinds of suffering. The suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and all pervasive suffering. How they exist in the 3 realms. The animal realm, the craving spirits, or the yidaks, or the pretas, or the hungry ghosts. We have a lot of names for them, right? And the hell beings. How that suffering presents itself to each of these 3 realms. Where do these 3 realms exist? Are like the hells down below us in the ground? The animal realm's all around us, right? I can hear the cicadas outside my house right now. Little bugs who live in trees that make lots of noise in the fall. I can hear the chickens in the neighbors' yards. I can see the cat walking through my yard, the dogs barking at night. The hungry ghosts, the pretas, well, that's another story, right? For me, it's kind of, well, I haven't seen them specifically myself. I can't say that. So maybe they exist, maybe they don't. I put it on the shelf. But the prasangika, the Madhyamika prasangika viewpoint, if we put that hat on, they are a projection of my seeds. Those realms are. They are a projection of my seeds that I planted in the past of how I related to other beings. They are a product of my seeds. The seed that's ripening comes out and presents itself out here, right? We could say that they exist in our mind, but they're real. They exist out here. You can see the animal realm very clearly. They are real because they are our projection. As simple as that. So what is this referring to? This is referring to a person who is attached to creating the causes to be born in one of these 3 realms, as one of these beings. That means you're attached to doing negative deeds. For instance, to be born in the animal realm, you would probably, I don't remember specifically, and I didn't go back to check, but animals steal from each other. They steal food from each other. They kill each other. Right? Hungry ghosts, I remember very clearly, it's being stingy, not sharing what you have. All of these you can study in the course on death and the realms of existence. And you can study what the seeds are that you may be creating right now to be born in one of these three realms. It's good to know them. I should go back and study them. Am I doing those things? Because do I want to be born as an animal? No, thank you. Do I want to be born as a hungry ghost? Meaning, they can see a glass of water and it looks like water, but when they go to drink it, it tastes like pus and blood. And besides, their necks are so small that they can't even swallow. Or in the hothouse, right? Where the hot as hell, they do these horrible things to you, and then you die, and then you have to get up and do it again. The hell of no respite. The hell of a beachy. Are we creating the seeds for that? Are we attached to getting what we want, which ends up creating the seeds to be born in those places? No. But you need to check it out. Okay? So, number 3, a person who is attached to getting what she or he wants is no bodhisattva. I don't think I have to say anything here. It's pretty clear. Are you attached to me, now, I want? That's the very blatant, the very obvious way of seeing it. But look for the more subtle ways that we are attached to getting what we want over what someone else wants. Can we both get what we want? Does it have to be one or the other? No, it doesn't. We can all get what we want. And that's the whole reason we're doing this, right? We want everyone to be happy. And everyone else also wants to be happy. So we can do that. Are we attached to getting to enlightenment as quickly as possible so that we can help others become happier, get out of suffering? Of course we are. So there are healthy attachments and unhealthy attachments. If you have an attachment like that and you plant the seeds for it, getting there as quickly as possible, let's say in this lifetime, and you plant the seeds for that, will you be harming others? If you try to do it as quickly as possible and you hurt somebody, you are not planting the seeds for getting there quickly as possible. We talked about it yesterday. Every seed we plant, or just about every seed we plant, is in relationship to other and our perception of other. We also have talked about where does other begin, right? Where do I stop and other begin? So even this idea of other, which is so wrapped up in the seeds that we plant, is a projection of our mind. If, like Master Shantideva says, we, or suggests that we don't see where I end and Natasha begins, then we are serving all beings. Think of the karma of that, the seeds you would plant. And number 4, one who grasps a self-existence has no correct worldview. Again, pretty obvious what that means. There is no, if you think things are coming this way, that worldview will cause you to go to the lower realms, according to these teachings, right? Try it out for yourself. If karma, if seeds and emptiness are true, then your life should become happier. If you use them, right? If you just don't use them, you say, oh yeah, they're true, and right. If you use this practice, your life should become much sweeter. If not, you're just going to see the same old things happening over and over again. Like when I first came to Buddhism 30-some years ago, it went up, my life went down, my life went up, my life went down. It was exhausting. It's so much more energizing and fun to plant seeds and to have fun doing it. So those are freedom from the 4 attachments. Maybe that's one you really like, that lojong. We're going to go on to another lojong now, which is called the 12-point lojong. Lojong of the celestial mansions. The first one, say Yiche. Yiche. You are trustworthy. You can count on that person to do what they say they're going to do. They don't let you down. If you have a Zoom meeting with them, you know they're going to show up. Right? I have somebody who I'm trying to get them to change their seeds, who's not showing up when we have a meeting. And it's like, you're planting some bad seeds here. Are they trustworthy? No. The second one is Kadrin Dren. Say Kadrin. Dren. Kadrin Dren. Kadrin, maybe you know it from a book that Geshe Michael wrote. There is a character, there is a young woman in it whose name is Kadrin. And it means kindness. Right? And Dren, like in Drenpa, means to recall, to remember. We use that same word with meditation. Recall what you're supposed to be meditating on, right? There's that little bell that goes off when you're out here thinking about going to Kyoto or something. And it says, hello, remember we were meditating on Tonglen? So you remember the kindness of your teacher, of your Dharma buddies who have helped you in your practice. They are loyal. They help you. So we have trustworthy and loyal. And the third one is they're helpful. Okay? So are you helpful to people? When someone needs something, do you jump and say, oh, let me help you with that? So trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly. Do you say hi to everybody when they come into your office? Or for me, my office is the college in Sedona. We have a big conference going on there, a yoga conference right now with lots of people coming in from mostly New York, but some from Mexico, somebody from Germany. Do you just walk by them and don't say anything? Do you treat them with kindness as part of the family, as part of the circle? Or do you keep them out? Are you courteous? Are you paying attention to how you affect others? Do you let other people sit in the room with Geshe Michael and sit somewhere else because there's not enough room for everybody? Do you help carry their things? You hold doors open, move wires out of the way, make sure that there's room for people to move around, clean the water off the floor in the bathroom. All these things. So we have here these three. You're friendly to everyone, you're courteous, and you're kind, which is kind of in all of these already, right? You serve them. You are at their, what we would say, beck and call. When they need something, you are there. Sometimes it's really hard for me, I have to admit. I'm so used to doing things for myself that when somebody opens a door for me or wants to take my backpack or is like, what can I do? What can I do? I'm like, just leave me alone. That's what I'm saying inside of myself. It's like, this is too much. This is too much. Just leave me alone. I can do it. I can do it myself. That's not the point. That's not the point. And I think I learned that lesson really for the first time, and I'm still working with it, many years ago when I put on the first quiet retreat teachings out in the middle of the desert. People want to be involved. People want to serve. And if we don't give them a chance to serve, then we're being unkind. And this is a lesson that I have to continually remind myself. I think I've gotten better. So again, see how these fit for you. I'm not perfect, that's for sure. So, Dulwar Nyan. Dulwar means to be tamed, like in Vinaya, the Dulwa, right, to tame. Nyan, to listen. Do you listen carefully to what you're asked to do by your teacher, by your boss, by other people, and then do it? Or do you make excuses? Oh, I didn't have time for that, or I forgot about it, or we can look at these and see which ones we need to work on, right? Oh, I'll do it later. When I say I'll do it later, usually what happens is I forget about it. So I have a book that I try to write things in, and I check them off to remind myself of what I will do, what I said I would do. And then number 8, cheerful. Have fun doing good things. Don't be grumpy. Work cheerfully, like Marina does. Right? You don't complain or whine about things. Oh, there she is, peeking into the camera. She's always cheerful and ready to help. Right? Be like that. Number 9, be thrifty. Don't waste the planet's resources. We are forced to see them as finite at this time. Why? Because we've abused them and we haven't shared them. Really. So we see them as very finite. It's scary. Check how you waste the planet's resources. How much toilet paper do you really need when you go to the bathroom? Do you need 3 feet of it? Those are trees. Animals live in those trees. They clean our air. They hold our soil. They retain water. They are our brothers and sisters. And that's just one example. Turn off the lights when you're done. Don't buy unnecessary stuff. And how can we create abundance? By being thrifty. Then there will be more to share in a wise way, not in a destructive way. I'm probably just preaching to the choir, but sometimes I need to be reminded. So. Number 10, Patak Dan. We're talking about a warrior here. Be brave, be courageous to do what you know needs to be done. We're talking especially about your worldview and your lifestyle. Do the right thing, regardless of the consequences. Be brave. Be a bodhisattva warrior. What's the new Lam Rim title for the Kyoto teachings? It's gladiator warrior or something like that. Be like that in your practice. And it's an inner thing. It's not an outer thing. Be a badass in your practice. Clean. Dak Shing So. Have a pure field. What does that mean? Create your own pure land, your own paradise, right around you, in your own home, in your workspace, in your town. Pick up the trash, right, when you see it. Carry a bag or something to put it in, especially if you live in a city that's dirty or a town that's dirty. Why? Because that's going to be the cause of your Buddha paradise. Creating clean spaces around you for yourself and for others. And then be reverent. Keep the Dharma in mind in every action, word, and thought that you have. Again, easier said than done because of our old habits. So how do we create new habits? We do it as much as we can. At the end of the day, we review our day, we think about what we did and said, and we rejoice in those moments of where we had the Dharma in our hearts. This rejoicing is super important. It's the water on the seeds. And if you do it just before you go to bed, then while you're sleeping, those seeds can grow into healthy, beautiful flowers because you've given them the water. You've given them the sunlight by recognizing them. You've given them a strong ground to grow in taking refuge in seeds and empty. So all the pieces are there, but if we don't water them and rejoice in them, they just sit there in the ground. And they will not flower into beautiful things. So herein contained are the instructions of developing a good heart, named the Celestial Mansions. What do you think Celestial Mansions is a reference to? I've given you a clue in this picture. David, did you raise your hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it a reference to astrology, to the
It is.
constellations?
Yes. So it's a code word for basically the number 12, since there are 12 major constellations, both in the ancient Asian astrology as well as Western astrology. So let's take a little break here, and then we're going to come back. This is going to be a short class today, and we're going to read the instructions for developing a good heart named Celestial Mansions. Okay, so it is, let's come back. I'll give you a long break. Let's come back on the hour. Just makes it simpler for everybody. Come back on the hour. It's 13 minutes before the hour right now. And I will see you all here in a few minutes. Get something to drink, have a stretch. We've been sitting for almost an hour now. And see you soon. Thank you, Anna, for putting up the URL for the Lamrim retreat in Kyoto, Japan in December, at which time we will also be celebrating the 30th anniversary of ACI. Pretty cool, huh? And then next year, we're going to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Diamond Mountain. And the 10th anniversary since we got out of retreat. So lots of wonderful anniversaries happening and rejoicing. And it's like, this is joyful effort, right? Rejoicing and doing good for the last many, many years. Natasha, are you translating? All right, then. Will you read these first verses for us? So this is the text from which those 12 points were taken from. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. The true sign that they have succeeded in developing the good heart has come to any person who is full of 12 spiritual qualities, as the Ganges is full of drops of water, and the way the expanse of the whole night sky is covered with celestial mansions. Should I continue? Yeah. Now you can always count on them. They always repay the kindness received. They lend a hand to all who come, and are soft and gentle to everyone. They are courteous in their behavior to others.
Just finish that verse, please.
And act as a servant to all. They listen well what needs to be done, and greet you with a joyful smile.
Yulia, can you read the last verse for us, please? Are you there? No. Okay. Svetlana, would you like to read the last verse for us?
Svetlana is translating.
Translating. Anna.
Oh, yes, okay, I can read. Thank you. They use with respect resources we share, and their courage is always evident. Their places are clean and simple. They are getting their paradise ready, and the Dharma has kept their hearts. People captured, just hold, yes, captured their hearts. People like this are truly kings of the great sovereign lords, the Garudas. They will pass, Garudas. They will pass with speed to the heaven where the useful guide holds court. Sarva Mandalas, my goodness, ever prevail. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. So captured their hearts. When you capture something, it's like if you're going after a mosquito and you capture it in your hand. So it's like to hold it. So your heart has been, or when you fall in love, someone has captured your heart. Does that make sense? they have your heart, but not in a hard way, in a very soft and gentle and kind way. And the Garuda is a special bird who's kind of like the phoenix, which I know in many children's stories, the phoenix is a bird that rises from the ashes of something. And so the Garuda bird is like that. So these verses and that list of 12, it's not ascribed to any author. We don't have an author for it, which is really interesting to me. And I would ask if they are similar to a list of 12 that you may have encountered in your own life. Right? David's got his hand raised.
It's the
What
Boy
does
Scout.
it remind you of, David?
It's the Boy Scout pledges.
So it's the pledges of the Boy Scouts. So is there any coincidence that these 12 points match the list of the Boy Scout pledges? And it's not just Boy Scouts of America. Boy Scouts are all over the world, right? It's kind of cool. We created that, right? This Lojong. Lojong can appear anywhere. The advice is on Lojong. You just got to keep your mind open to it. And as your Dharma practice becomes more powerful, you can rewrite the history of your life. And then you will start to have what's called namdak, a spiritual level where you realize the early influences in your life were not normal people. Buddhas can appear in any way at all, as any normal looking person who has affected your life. I wasn't part of Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. But for those, it's mostly women here anyway, maybe you were part of Girl Scouts or some other children's group. Can you really say that the leaders of your group were not emanations of an enlightened being, helping you to become a better person? Could they have been both a normal person and an enlightened being? Who were the bodhisattvas that have taught us all along the way? We can't judge an experience in our life as joyous, unhappy, etc., as being any particular way. Our world becomes pure if we see it that way. Now, that's a big statement. Can you just see it that way? Can I see this pen as Manjushri's sword? Dang, no. I still see it as a blue pen, right? I don't see it as Manjushri's sword cutting through my mental afflictions. We can't do that yet. We have to plant the seeds. Then I'll be forced to see this as Manjushri's sword. And I would assume by that time, I won't have any more mental afflictions, so I can pass it on to somebody else. Right? To cut through those things. So, is it possible that the 12 commitments of a Boy Scout could have come from a holy being? Yeah. So don't limit your world. There will become a time where every sound you hear is the Dharma. Like I like to think when my refrigerator starts humming, that it's humming Om. Right? Oh. And what does that then do? Then your mind goes to a different place. The youthful guide here, where the youthful guide holds court, the last line before the dedication, refers to Manjushri, the angel of wisdom, in his form as a lovely 16-year-old young man, right? In the prime of his youth. Another Lojong, another one of my favorite Lojongs, is the Crown of Knives. Written by Master Dharmarakshita. We don't know his specific dates. We can say he lived around 950. He's an Indian author who passed on these teachings, who wrote them down. He was a master of the Abhidharma teachings, and he was a teacher of Lord Atisha. Lord Atisha lived 982 to 1052, and he's the one who first brought Buddhism from India to Tibet. His students were those guys we've been talking about called the Kadampas, those crazy yogis. And so we have a picture here of Lord Atisha. We do not have a picture that I know of Master Dhammarakshita. He's another one of my heroes. Another name for Lord Atisha is Jowoje. So if you hear that, you know that that's who they're referring to. The idea of the Wheel of Knives, it is described in the Vinaya Sutra. The Vinaya Sutra is a sutra on how to keep a good life. What we used to call keep your ethics, right? It presents the topic of karma and its consequences. So it represents this idea that if you do something to someone else, you get the same consequence back on yourself. It's the big payback. Our reading doesn't have the entire text, only pieces of it, but there will be an upcoming book published by Diamond Cutter Classics at some point of the translation of The Crown of Knives by Seiji Arao and Geshe-la. It's not published yet. It hasn't been fully edited yet. It's all in process. So keep your eyes open if you want to read the rest of this text. And of course, come to Diamond Cutter Classics Translators course if you can. It is It's hard and it's amazing. And it will push your understanding of seeds and emptiness. So I highly recommend it. And you know, if it's not hard, like Dhamma Mitra says, you know, no pain, no gain. We need to stretch our minds because there's so little right now. So come and stretch your mind at Translators. And maybe Natasha could put it in our chat for everybody, what the new schedule will be like. So in our reading, though, there's a chart that lists the correlations, the connections between seeds planted and their results. The apparent results, right? We know that they're not self-existent. There does appear to be some connection. Who's created that connection? We've created that connection between the causes and the result. And at least in my copy, it starts on around page 338. And you'll need that for your homework. Okay, just giving you a little heads up. So the wheel of knives. Imagine there's this wheel, right? It's a round wheel. It has blades coming out on the outside and blades on the inside. And it represents this idea, it's like a boomerang, that if you throw it out into the world, it's going to circle back and land on your head. You will get the same consequences back. Any bad idea, any bad thing, any bad word that ever happens to you, you put in motion. And then when you continue to get angry at someone for a problem you actually created through your own misdeeds in the past, this vicious cycle continues. That is the meaning of samsara. And we put into motion little samsaras every day. Right? The people who bother us are only the instruments. They are only the postman who brings it back to you. We set these energies in motion. We could also call them a razor-tipped boomerang, or actions that backfire on us, or blowing off our own toes, hanging ourselves, digging our own grave. I mean, there's many, many metaphors we can use. An archer who accidentally falls on his own arrow. There is no unpleasant mental or physical event in our lives that we have not set in motion ourselves. So stop blaming others. Stop criticizing others. Take the blame, because that's where it belongs. And you don't, again, have to feel guilty or beat yourself up about it. It's just like the sword. Oh, dang, I can't see a sword yet. oh, dang, I set that emotion. May I never set that emotion again. I will keep my mouth shut. I will go in the bathroom and look in the mirror and see who really is to blame. In the poem, in Crown of Knives, Master Dharmarajshita refers to the henchman of the devil. So who is this henchman? It's the state of mind that grasps to a self-existent self. The one who is working only for their own happiness. Number one. So that's two ways. Seeing ourselves as self-existent, and two, only working for our own happiness. Why? Because we think we're self-existent. They work with each other, right? So, and we think it's all coming this way. We don't realize that it's a product of our past seeds. We don't realize that it's not a projection forced on us by what we have thought, said, and done. So the Crown of Knives gives us this correlation of the cause and the results that we might be experiencing now. Does it mean that you're necessarily creating those seeds now to be experiencing the result? No, it might, and not just it might, you're not doing it now, you did it in the past. We have been everything and everyone. We have done every horrible thing that we see, otherwise we wouldn't see it. And we have done every kind thing that we have seen. We have been the murderer, we have been the murdered. We have lived countless lives in many different forms, in different worlds. So if something's happening, it's like somewhere in the past, you did that thing, right? You did that thing. Nonetheless, right, if we're experiencing unfavorable results now, we can take great care not to continue doing the same thing. Therefore, we have this wonderful list of correlations that says, if this is happening to you, this is what you did to make it happen. So then you can cut it off. You can stop doing it. And you can also cut that off by not just stopping it, but realizing that you did it in the past. You don't need to do anything now. It's what Geshe Michael used to call dry cement. You can't change it. You can't do anything about it. Okay, that karma just ripened. Whew. It's done. It's over. That one's done. don't have to experience it again. We don't need to get upset. We don't need to perpetuate it. We can just realize I messed up in the past. It's ripening now. That's the way it is. And then let it go. Otherwise, if you feed it, if you water it, what's going to happen? You're going to get, it's going to be a weed in your garden, not a flower. Right? So an example would be if you catch somebody lying to you, and you're generally a truthful person, to clean up that problem, you have to work on the smallest level of being truthful. You have to be really, really strict about it. And if you are, watch your reality change. In this process, we have to understand the how versus the why. Describing how something is happening is the usual way that we think about things, how they work. It's the usual way. And we should try really hard to not confuse that with the why things happen. The how is how it's appearing to us. It's the person yelling at us. That's the how. The why, though, is the seed that's causing that person to yell at us. So this is what the Crown of Knives is talking about. The actions we performed in the past to create the result we're experiencing now. If we use the how description rather than the why description, we may end up making things worse because we'll just react to it. So when something is happening, if you can, in that 15 seconds, remember the why. Oh, I planted this seed. My self-cherishing, let's go after that. Don't blame the other person. Realize you planted the seed. You don't want to plant anymore. You don't need to get upset. This karma is finished. So who is this real enemy? This real enemy, say Rang Chenzin. Rang Chenzin. It's this self-cherishing. There's another piece to it, say Doxin. Doxin. Doc is self. Grasping to a self. So the state of mind that watches out for number one, who takes care of number one, ignores the others. That's self-cherishing. We believe that we exist in some way, that Gyelse exists in some way from my own side, independent of my projections forced on me by my past seeds. That is the self-grasping, which is the actual cause of the self-cherish. So you see how these two work together? We can't really get at the self-cherishing until we realize directly, quite honestly, the direct perception of emptiness, of me. The me doesn't exist in any way, never did, never will, the way I thought. So, what do we do? The way we reverse this crown of knives coming back to us is to turn it around. There's a beautiful story, by the way, of the crown of knives, which you'll find in your reading, and I'm not going to share with you here today. But, or maybe I will. So, this is a story about a young man. And I kind of imagine this young man myself being from like Norway or somewhere in Scandinavia near an ocean that totally relies on fishing and maybe pirating as well for their livelihood. And it's a story of a family, mother, a father, and a young man. And the father always worked on the sea and lived on the sea and would go out. And at one point, there was a storm and their ship never came back. So the father and other husbands and fathers of the community, they all died in this shipwreck, right? And as the young man grew older, he and his buddies, even though they had lost their fathers, began to pine, to want to go out on the sea for adventure, right? You know how we are when we're young. We're looking for the next excitement, right? The next good thing. And so he went, his friends are getting ready to go out sailing, and he wants to go too, you know? He wants to hang out with his buddies, and he wants to do what his father did, and thinks it's going to be this exciting adventure. And so he goes to his mother, and he asks her very kindly and very respectfully if he can go. And she basically says, "No, you are my only son. I've already lost your father. Please don't go. Please stay." He respects his mother and he stays, and his friends go off and they come back. And some months pass and his friends are beginning to get ready to go again. And of course, in the meantime, they've probably talked about how fun it was and how exciting and what they did. And the young man is like really wanting to go. And so he goes to his mom again. And he says, "Mom, you know, you didn't let me go last time. And my friends are getting ready to go this time. Would you please let me go? I really want to go. I really want to do this." Now, if any of you have ever had teenagers, you know this story. And the mom, she says, "You know, I shared with you last time why I didn't want you to go. Please don't go. You're the only son I have. I need you. I need your help here at home. And I love you. I don't want to lose you to the ocean as well." And so he decides not to go again. He's not so happy about it this time, right? A little bit grumbling. And his friends go off and nothing happens to them and they come back. And of course, they have more stories to tell about what happened and where they went and what, you know, whatever they saw. And he really, really wants to go the next time they go out. So some months pass and they're getting ready again. And the young man goes to his mother, kneels down and begs her to let him go. And at this point, she's in tears, you know, it's like, no, please, please, I can't let you go. I need you. I love you. I've lost your father. This will break my heart if you go. He's respected her twice. And this time, he can't quite get himself to respect her decision. And he gets upset. And as he is rushing out of the house to go with his friends, he knocks her over. Not on purpose, but he still knocks her over. He goes down to the ship, he gets on the ship and sails away with his buddies. But this time, they encounter a storm. And it's a really, really rough storm. And the ship does not make it through. And the ship sinks. And the young man is fortunate enough to be able to find a piece of wood from the ship, to be able to float on it. Everybody else dies. And he's floating for days, and he ends up on an island in the middle of the ocean. And you know what? That's all the story I'm going to tell you. You've got to read the rest. You want me to keep going? Yes, okay. I'm just watching the time here. I think we have time. So he goes to this desert island, and you know, he's washed up on the beach, he's ragged and tired and thirsty and hungry, kind of half alive probably, you know, since he rode out this storm and out there for days in the sun, floating around on this plank from the ship. And he's kind of delirious. And he opens his eyes and he sees these three, if I remember correctly, he sees these three beautiful young women looking down at him. And he can't believe that this is what is happening. Is this a dream or is it real? It turns out to be real, and they rescue him and they take him back to his castle, their castle. But there's one thing that they tell him. They tell him, you can do anything here. We'll take care of you. Here's new clothes. Here's a room. But you cannot leave the castle. And so for many years, they all live happily there together. And he doesn't leave the castle. Now I haven't read this story in a long time. Let's see if I remember it properly. Anyway, I think it's like there's 3 times he thinks about it. But anyway, he ends up leaving the castle. He doesn't listen to them, just like he didn't listen to his mom. And he goes out of the castle and he goes to explore the island. And he comes upon another castle, but this one is a kind of a dark castle. It's kind of falling apart, and, you know, the gate is hanging crooked, and it's kind of a, dark castle. But he goes into it. He decides to go into the castle and see what's inside. And when he gets into the castle, he hears a sound. He hears the sound of somebody moaning and crying. And he goes looking for this person or thing. He doesn't know what it is. And as he's going up the staircase, he looks up, and there is a young man who looks just like him, who is wearing a crown of knives on his head. And it is spinning around and cutting his head. And he is like, oh my goodness, what happened to you? What did you do? Why do you have this crown of knives on your head? And the young man with the crown of knives on his head tells him a story about wanting to go with his friends out on the ocean. And they got shipwrecked. And he survived and ended up on this island. And these beautiful maidens came and they took care of him for years and years and years. But he didn't heed what they had said to him. And he left the castle and the safety of the castle. And he came to this dark castle. And he saw a young man with a crown of knives on his head. And our young man, he's like, you are telling me my story. And at that moment, in his heart, he makes a wish. May this crown of knives come to me, so this young man no longer has to suffer. And in that moment, the crown rises off the other young man's head and begins to descend down the stairs and hovers over our young man's head. But it never lands. It disappears. Because of his wish to take the suffering of the other young man. So that's kind of, at least how I remember this story, right? There may be some specific facts that I don't remember clearly. It obviously made a strong impression on me because I remember this story so deeply. So the way we reverse the crown of knives is to bring it onto our own head. Instead of being solely on the receiving end of our past karma, we start creating the future we want. We use method. We have two wings, method, and wisdom, right? Wisdom's over here on the left side, and method is on the right side. We use our bodhisattva activities, such as giving, being kind and patient, doing things joyfully, meditating, studying, wisdom, understand the pen, understand the two husbands in the kitchen, and do all these activities with that understanding. This is how we collect the two collections of merit and wisdom that we talked about this morning when we said our prayers, right? When we said our opening prayers. May we gain merit and wisdom, the two collections that make an enlightened being. That's what we need to make an enlightened being. And so, in the crown of knives, there is this refrain that goes, with the roar of hell, smash now the skull of my misperceptions, the ones who have wasted my life. Bring your death to the heart of this butcher, my greatest enemy. So be a badass. Get out there. Fight your mental afflictions, right? Fight the Lord of Death. Fight yourself, cherish it, and grasp it. Also, the text talks about how our whole lives are constantly mistaking the reflection of the moon in our teacup for the real moon itself. Is that the real moon in the teacup? No. So if we're constantly mistaking this reflection of the moon for the real thing itself, then shouldn't we do good deeds and not the bad things? Why do you say that? What's the connection? Hello, I don't get it. What creates the reflection of the moon in our teacup? Is the calming together of the cup, the tea, the moon, etc. And this is the way that all appearances we perceive are created. By the coming together of our own projections and the raw data on which those projections are placed. The chocolate sauce on the ice cream. That is the connection. This is a metaphor for how we create our world. Is there raw data out there? Yes. If you don't go looking too closely. If you look more closely, there's raw data of the raw data. There's raw data of the raw data of the raw data. And you'll never get to any self-existent raw data. Does it appear like there's raw data out there? Yeah. Who created that raw data? I did. Would I like to see some different raw data? Yeah. What do I have to do? I have to do my 6 perfections. I have to perfectionize myself. I have to serve others. I have to understand where things are coming from. And I need to understand that deeply. So I need to meditate and do my retreats and serve others and keep my book and be kind. Let's start there. Be kind to yourself and kind to others. And that is the end of class for today. Our meditation, examining 3 or 4 of your most serious problems, and check mentally the list, which means you have to have looked at the list of their causes, right? And think about how you can plant different seeds for different causes. So that's Lojong, or bits and pieces of Lojong. Of course, I encourage you to take ACI 14. I, of course, encourage you to take all of the courses. They're not one or another, but there's so much wisdom and so much hands-on that we can do with the Lojong, right? It gives us so many ways to work with our problems, our life, and how we walk through it. It gives us more tools in our toolbox. And as I say, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more in the course itself in ACI 14. We're just doing a review. So if you liked the taste of it, I encourage you to do ACI 14. And we get to end a little bit early today. Let's take a moment before we say goodbye to dedicate. And David, let's do it again traditionally, but before we do that, get in your own mind, before we just recite some prayers, have in your mind itself what you want to dedicate it to, or who you want to dedicate it to. I'm not going to guide you in this one. Go into your own heart and make a dedication, and then David will lead us in the prayers.
Gewari Gewokun Sunam Yeshe Tsokso Sunam Yeshe Lejungwe Dampa Kunyi Toparsho.
May all beings be happy and free of suffering. Thank you. And don't forget to think about if we're going to have a class 11, and if we are, what you want to do. See you next week.
Thank you so much, Venerable Gyelse. Thank you, thank you. It was beautiful and inspiring. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for working to make this a better world. Yeah.